Yep.
Cecilia, thank you.
Thank
you so much for taking the time and trouble to come across and have a chat to us.
You're
Karen
most
behind the camera, me now,
Yeah.
your new Eamon Holmes. But now we've got Cecilia here from the Footprint Foundation. She's going to have a chat to us. We're out at the gorgeous Giraffe Manor, as you can see. Go on, take a look.
You can just see him coming through the trees.
Cecilia's come to join us and have a chat about the foundation. Over to you. Talk.
Okay. Well, I'm Cecilia, as you've heard. I'm the Assistant Director of the Footprint Foundation. And basically the Footprint is dedicated to our community and conservation efforts here at the Safari Collection. So as you know, it's a property of 4 properties, and in each property there's always conservation efforts going on. I mean, at the Giraffe Manor, which is the most obvious one, is the Giraffe Conservation Program, where we have some of our guests come in and do a sponsorship for a giraffe. Like, for example, just very little money, like around $50, they get to sponsor a giraffe. But this money goes into conservation efforts by the Giraffe Conservation Foundation, who do research on giraffe conservation around Africa. They're actually the only NGO that does that. So we support them on that. And then also we have Giraffe Center across, where they have the breeding program for the Rothschild giraffe.
Yes.
Which is basically the basis of where we started from. You know, this was meant to be part of the breeding center, so they sold this part to us, and then now Giraffe Center continue the breeding work. So what we do is that every guest that visits the Giraffe Manor, $15 goes to the Giraffe Center to help them in their efforts also. So we have 2 bits to it. You know, there's the Giraffe Conservation Foundation and there's the Giraffe Center. And then we always say, you know, when guys come to Giraffe Manor, it's about taking selfies, and you know, so we're saying behind that selfie, there's conservation efforts going on. And that's what people need to know out there, that it's not just about just coming and exploiting the animals, as you'd say, you know, people think that, you know.
Of course.
But it's about now also helping the conservation efforts.
And
of the
how have you
giraffe.
coped with the lack of tourism over the last 2 years for the coronavirus? Has the pandemic helped really curtailed all your activity, or have you kept going?
Not really, because we have an online sponsorship that goes on. So you have people who sponsor online, and they don't really need to come here. So they know what the sponsorship is all about.
Good.
So 50% of that money goes into the Giraffe Conservation Foundation, and 50% goes into our community work, which I'll talk about later.
Okay.
Yeah. They have basically a research team based at Salas Camp, and they basically do research on the pangolin, which is a very small mammal, but highly endangered.
Okay.
Because people actually get it for their keratin. They've got keratin, and some used it as medicine, especially in China. So what we do is that we have this team working in Salas. Salas is just favored because they have got, I think, good ground for the pangolins to burrow in. So what happens is the research team is based there, and they do the research there. So they get to know the behavior of the animal, social behavior of the animal. They get to educate the community about the dangers of, you know, of avoiding poaching and stuff like that. You know, and advantages of having it as an animal, as in conserving it as an animal. So yeah, so that happens at Salas. Sorry, I'm doing this so fast.
No, that's good. That's
You're
really
allowed
good.
to slow me down.
No, I don't want to.
At Samburu, where in Sasab, we have different projects also. The most interesting one is a wild dogs project. Wild dogs is rare also, also endangered, because we have very few right now remaining in the wild. So we have a program where we're meant to be doing a collaring of the wild dogs to monitor their movement and their behavior, just the same thing as a pangolin, but they've been so hard to catch.
I bet they are. They run fast.
I think we've had 3 attempts at darting them, but it's not happened yet, so we're still working on that.
Yes.
But that's an exciting program that's coming up. So beyond the conservation efforts, we also say for conservation to happen, you need to have the community buy-in. As I said, like now the pangolin projects have got to educate the community about the importance of having the pangolin. You know, if they think it's something you can get money from by poaching it, then they'll never take care of it, you know. But if you put efforts into educating the community about why conservation is important, then they will join you in the conservation efforts.
Yes.
So, but for the community, for them, maybe they're still trying to see the benefits of tourism. They're now seeing it before maybe they didn't see it. Because Kenya was really well endowed in terms of animals and tourism back then, until there was a lot of poaching that happened in the 80s and a lot of animal hunting. So that reduced a lot of the number of animals we have in a lot of places. So the small communities that normally have wildlife in their area want to keep that wildlife there. And like, I'm from and please don't quote me on this. I'm from Ukambani, and Ukambani, when I was growing up in the 80s, it was, hunting was like the in thing. You know, you go home and you know there's a deer that has been hunted down, and it was not a big deal. Then we didn't see the value, but now years later, I'm like, I wish we hadn't done that because we'd benefit enormously from the tourism that's happening right now.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
So what happens is that the communities that are already doing the conservation, we want to encourage them to continue doing so. So now, besides now the conservation, we have to help the community with their issues. You know, like maybe they don't have hospitals. You know, they have issues. Maybe not enough water. So we have different projects going on in the different communities. We have, again, I start again with Giraffe Manor.
Yes.
One of the things we do, okay, as much as we don't have much of, how will I put it, poor people living around here, we help communities in Kibra slum.
Right.
I don't know if you heard of Kibra. It's one of
I've
the
not
largest.
heard of Kibra, no.
Oh, it's one of the largest slums in Africa.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have very few schools, public schools. The government only has, I think, 2 government schools.
Yeah.
But it's a small area with a very large population of people. So of course, they can't benefit from just having 2 government schools. They need more schools. So the schools that have been established, most of them are private, but they don't have like enough food, for example, for the kids, or enough stationery and stuff like that. So we come in and help with that.
Right.
So when I said like 50% goes into giraffe conservation, the rest goes to community work. We have basically, we started a library in one of the schools. We built one for them, a resource center for them. We bought books for them. We started a Feeding Young Minds program where we feed kids from
that,
this. Yeah, we give them lunch.
Education is so important.
Yeah. And you see, without good nutrition, basically you're not going to get anything in class, you know, because you're hungry, you know. So we support in that way. The program happens across all our properties. So in Solio, you'd find us feeding a school in Solio, feeding a school in Samburu, feeding a school around Salas, although not so much in Salas because it's mainly a conservation area.
Right.
What we've done with Salas, that for community projects, we've encouraged young kids to go on something we call the Safari Kids, which is basically, you know what tourists do, you know, you go on to safari and you get to see all the animals.
Yes.
So kids who live around Masai Mara haven't gotten that experience.
Good grief.
Yes. So they don't really get what the rest of you get and the rest of us understand. So when you take them for those safari, now you put them in the safari cars and they get the full tourist experience. And we have our guides who speak very good Masai. So they actually do this in Masai. I actually sit there with them and I don't know what they're saying. I'm like, okay. They're like, oh, that's the name of the giraffe in Kimasai. Who knows the name of the giraffe in Kimasai? So they have put their hands up and, you know, they get to learn these things and it's very interesting and so much fun for the kids. So you see when they grow and they get older and they're able to, they now understand the value of tourism, the value of conservation, so they're able to have.
And the two are inexorably linked, are they, tourism and conservation?
Sorry?
And the two are linked together.
Exactly. For the kids now, then they get to see that the two are linked together, so they know when they're out grazing, for example. You know, most masses are basically known as nomads, so they would move from place to place, and when they spot a lion, you know, it's killing a lion is like, you know, such a great thing. But then now they get to know, oh, we don't need to kill it because, you know what, we need the tourism income into our community. So we've even had some of our guides actually who basically helped the community and educated them on the importance of just, you know, get your own place for grazing so that you don't get into the conservation areas and affect the animals. Because as much as you're gaining from your animals, you'll also gain from this tourism. And they're doing it very well. I wish it could be replicated in Samburu. It's still... it's a bit more organized at the Mara, but we're getting somewhere in Samburu also with our efforts.
That's so fantastic.
So Samburu also we have the Conservation Scholars Program, which is basically a high school sponsorship program for girls, where girls are sponsored to go to school for 4 years. So we have our guests, but that is all done by our guests, not by us. We don't have any money that we give out. You know, we just basically have guests who come in and they're interested in knowing more on what we do. So when you tell them about, for example, the Conservation Scholarship Program and tell them about the plight of the girls in Samburu, they're interested. They're like, I'd like to sponsor a girl for 4 years throughout high school. So you get girls going to school throughout high school without any interference.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And does that work out expensive? What sort of cost is that?
It's around $1,250 per year. Which takes care of the school fees for the whole year.
That's incredible.
Their transport, sometimes their uniform, some shopping. And then at the end of the year, we normally have a camp for now these kids, the conservation scholars, where they get to meet their peers who are also in the same program, but from different parts.
Yes.
Yeah, and then they get to learn from each other, do sexual education, things like those, talk about issues that affect them. Yeah, and basically encourage each other
Well,
and
you
have
would never
fun.
know.
Yeah.
You would never know otherwise.
Yes, it's true, and that's why we're there.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming to tell us about it here. I mean, this is all part of the safari collection,
Yes.
which is all part and parcel with the foundation as
Yes,
well.
yes.
And how many different resorts have you got? You've got Saleh, Sasab, the
Solio.
Giraffe Manor,
And Solio.
and Solio.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And quite spectacular properties in their own
Thank
right.
you. Yes, thank you. Thank
No,
you.
no, no. We'll be going out to Saleh later on in the
Oh, I
journey
love Salehs.
in a week's time.
Yeah, I
So
love
I
that.
can't wait to get out there.
Oh, nice.
And I can't believe also that warthog is now an endangered species.
It is.
And
No,
they're
you're informing me. No, we're not protecting it, but it's always here.
No,
I'm
and
sure
they're
there's one somewhere.
Wandering around here, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to talk to me about sustainability then?
Yes, sure. So beyond the community and conservation efforts, there's also the sustainability bit. We say for any business to grow now, you can't throw away sustainability because you have to think about the future. So if we cut down all the trees, then we won't have any animals, or we won't. If you kill all the animals, if we do things that affect the environment, basically we won't have any tourism going on. So part of our sustainability efforts that we try and account for all our resources, for example, our water usage, fuel usage, and stuff like that. Then if we, for example, are emitting too much of carbon,
Yep.
CO2 because of usage of fuel, then we see what ways can we reduce this. How are we doing our food, for example? We have a lot of food waste and stuff like that. How do we reduce that? So what happens is that each property has got to give an account of everything from waste. They have to track their waste, they have to track how they're using their fuel, they have to track how they're using their water. So what happens is that we put all this information together and offset the carbon through various schemes to help us now be climate positive. A lot of that talk is going on right now in the
Yes.
world. People are becoming more conscious about how they're traveling. They don't want to leave a negative impact on the environment. So if they go to a place where they're not leaving a negative impact on the environment, then that makes a difference.
Absolutely,
Yes.
to a lot of people.
Yes.
Oh well, it's so important to us to not do any harm to what we see as so precious.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, you're doing great work, and you're dedicated your whole life to it.
Yes, I have. So many years on climate change work. So right now it's just basically putting it into practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, away from the noise. How you guys meet at the conference of parties and make so much noise about, you guys should do. We are actually having climate action happening. Yeah. We're actually doing something about it. We're just not talking about it, but we're doing something about it.
Well, bless you for it. Our grandchildren will thank you.
Yes, they will. Thank you.